What happens when you are working toward your goals and you suddenly realize that you aren't going to accomplish the goal fully? Or you're going to miss the deadline, or maybe you find out that the goal you set doesn't actually get you to where you need to be. In this episode of the Coaching Hive podcast, we are going to talk about just that, what it means, how to move forward, and the fact that you are enough. So if you're ready, join me for this episode of the Coaching Hive podcast. Okay, what happens? Truly, what happens when you're working toward your goal and you suddenly realize that you're not going to accomplish it, or that you're missing that deadline, or that maybe you find out the goal doesn't get you to where you need to be? I don't know about you, but for me, there's specific words that start to creep in, and they sound an awful lot like, I'm not good enough. Sometimes they sound like, who am I to be doing this? And I know this isn't just me because I've heard other coaches tell me the exact same thing. Last week in episode 40, we talked about measuring progress in a holistic way. And just to quickly recap, we can't rely on the numbers. We need to make sure that we're using subjective measures as well. These are going to help us look at the whole situation rather than just the black and white picture. Let's face it, progress is anything but black and white. It is not clear-cut, and especially when we realize that human beings are part of the equation, we know it's not clear-cut. If you want to learn more about measuring progress, thinking about it in a holistic manner, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 40. And when you're ready, we'll take a look at this week's topic. So let's move forward. Let's move forward with our concept of measuring progress. And I want to share something today with you that I hear on podcasts time and again. In fact, I listen to all kinds of business professionals and thought leaders and entrepreneurs. And one theme that comes through time and time again, loud and clear, is the encouragement to remember, I am enough. You see, when something doesn't work perfectly, it's easy to place the blame. And often people place the blame on themselves, particularly when they're entrepreneurs. You want to do your absolute best. You want to make sure that you're helping others and you're serving them to the best of your ability. Those are noble goals. They make you a hero. You are there to help others. What this doesn't say is that you need to be perfect, know everything, or have all of your ducks in a row right now, all at once. Let me ask you a question. How many times have you wondered to yourself, do I know enough to help this client? Am I qualified enough to reach out to the local chiropractor and share my services? Do I have enough experience to guide others on their journey? Chances are you're shaking your head yes, or maybe some variation of these questions. You know what all these questions have in common? Two main things. The first is that you want to avoid failure. As human beings, we are hardwired to want to avoid failure. It's protective to avoid failure. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. The second thing that all of these scenarios and more have in common is the word enough. We'll also talk about that. So let's break it down. Do you want to avoid failure? Of course you do. Do you want to make sure that you're successful? Of course you do. We like to feel confident, forward-thinking, and sure of what we're doing. We don't want to fail. We don't like to fail. Now, are you ready to hear what the great thought leaders often say? And if you've listened to any entrepreneur speak for any amount of time, you'll hear things that are very similar. There is no failure, only learning. Progress over perfection. Just take action. Get scrappy to find a way to move forward. Perfection is procrastination in disguise. All of these indicate that we need to reframe how we think about the situation, right? What if you were to remove the concept of failure from your vocabulary? That neural pathway in your brain that allows us to really think about failure and the negativity, that neural pathway in your brain would slowly shrivel up because it's no longer being used. And while that pathway that tells us we might fail shrivels up, new pathways are being formed, the ones that remind us that each step is progress, that perfection is not necessary or required, that taking action is the right action, regardless of the outcome. These positive pathways become stronger and stronger the more we use them. And it shifts our mindset from being fixed to one that says we can grow and learn. Let me share an example with you that happened just this week to make this point a little bit more clear. I'm working on a new workshop for the Coaching Hive as part of a peer entrepreneur community that I participate in. We're having a challenge. We're working together all at the same pace. And I had a few ideas for workshops, and we were tasked with posting the idea to see if it got traction. And if it did, great, you could move forward. I followed the format suggested, posted, and got crickets. No response, nothing, not even a like. Now, the leaders of this particular challenge were prepared. They offered next steps and ideas for what this might mean and how to proceed. Nowhere in the conversations or the documents was the word failure. In fact, it was stated that no response was fantastic. You might be scratching your heads now. What they meant was, now you don't have to waste your time creating something that your audience doesn't really need or want right now. So instead of thinking of that lack of response as a failure, or, oh my gosh, I didn't have the best idea for my clients or the right idea or even a good idea for my clients, instead, what was happening is we were creating a positive growth pathway. We were strengthening that. It didn't matter that there were no responses. It provided us with data. It provided a way to move forward. There was no failure. They even said that in some cases, no response is better than getting a ton of responses, because now you get to learn more. You get to go back to the drawing board, be creative again, and get to know your clients even better. So it really did open up the conversation. So with that positive outlook, I felt really empowered. I posted 3 workshop ideas in a different format in a highly respected group where health coaches hang out. It made me nervous. My palms were sweaty, but this is how you grow and learn, right? I genuinely wanted feedback and knew that this group of coaches would help me out. And a funny thing happened. I posted 3 ideas, and all 3 ideas got votes. I reached out to every single respondent and listened to why they made their choice. I had the chance to connect with people whom I've never met and reconnect with others that I already know. More positive pathways were being built and strengthened. My willingness to step outside my comfort zone paid off in spades. By reminding myself that I really wanted honest feedback, regardless of the outcome, I was no longer worried about failure. I would learn what my potential clients really wanted in a workshop, and that's a win in my book. I share this not to say that I'm perfect. Oh my goodness, remember the sweaty palms while I was posting? Yeah, not perfect. I also had to get some encouragement from my husband to reach out to each respondent. In fact, we sat in my office and I said, I know I should do this. I don't know. I don't want to bother anyone. What if they don't want to talk to me? But he reminded me that we're all a work in progress, that progress is not meant to be perfect. Progress is progress. There's an opportunity to take action. There's an opportunity to learn from each expedition in your business and your coaching journey. So to summarize that first point, remember there were 2 big ones. The first part that we just talked about, we have to actively work to prune the pathways that suggest we cannot grow and learn. And we have to actively work to build the pathways that support our growth. So I suppose that's 2 things. Prune the pathways that are the negative ones that tell us we can't learn and grow, and actively work to build the pathways that support our growth. This is a daily commitment that you make to yourself. It often requires the encouragement of your peer community, a mentor, friends, and family. At least that's the case for me, and it certainly has been the case for the coaches that I've worked with. Now, the other piece of the puzzle, if you think back, is the word enough. Remember the thoughts Do I know enough to help this client? Am I qualified enough to reach out to the local chiropractor and share my services? Do I have enough experience to guide others on their journey? They all have the word enough in common. As you say these words, you're suggesting to yourself that you are not enough. You don't know enough. You don't have enough, and you can't be enough. This goes back to what we were just discussing. We need to strengthen the positive growth promoting pathways and prune the pathways that lead to this negative thinking. Shifting your mindset to say, I am enough, changes the playing field. While a different coach might be wondering if they are enough to reach out and go make those community connections, you are saying to yourself, I am enough. You reach out to create the community connections. You are saying yes to the one-on-one conversations. You are stretching yourself to learn more, to better serve a client. You say each day, I am enough. By saying this simple phrase, hearing it from your peer community, from a mentor, you are worrying less when the challenges arise. You are accepting that you can follow your passion and serve others. You can be the coach who has the calendar booked with their ideal health coaching clients. You have the opportunity to choose coaching over a 9-to-5 job that may not feel fulfilling, and you get to engage regularly with the peers in your supportive network. You can be the coach who is excited, free, relieved, and jazzed about the future, where your days allow for self-care, for meaningful work, and you are seen as an expert health coach. This mental shift to one of I am enough allows measuring progress. Remember, that's where we started today. It allows measuring progress to take on a whole different light. Think about that for a moment. When you see something that doesn't work the way you thought, doesn't garner the attention you hoped, or just plain doesn't work at all, you are already thinking about how to make adjustments, how to make changes. You aren't doubting your worth when measuring progress. You're looking at the measure of progress as an opportunity to learn and grow and change. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to be the coach who wonders, am I enough? Or do you want to be the coach who knows I am enough? Send me a DM with the words, I am enough. And one thing that you're working on this week, I want to cheer you on. I want to offer you support. I want to celebrate with you as you learn and grow. Now, this was a big episode and lots of really important little nuggets. So let's recap today's conversation. We started with a reminder that measuring progress is really a holistic endeavor. We talked about that concept in more depth during episode 40 and then again at the beginning of this week's episode. We paused to dive into mindset revolving around the measurement of progress. When measuring progress, you need to do 3 things. Prune the negative pathways that have us thinking we failed or are a failure as a result of the progress we are or are not making. We need to prune the pathways. We need to grow the pathways that are positive and growth promoting. And finally, we need to remember that we are enough. Just as you are now, you are enough. As always, I hope that this podcast has given you something to think about, something to practice, and something to explore. I look forward to your DM with the words, I am enough, and one thing that you're working on. Until next time, have a happy, safe, and healthy week.